Mad Scientist's Evil Creations. The Anatomy of Evil. Unknown author. The first scream came from the incubator. It was thin, almost newborn, but it carried the weight of terror. Dr. Alaric Voss did not flinch. He merely adjusted his glasses and noted the time. The creatures were never supposed to scream so early. His laboratory lay buried beneath the derelict hospital, its corridors stitched with wires and pipes like veins. Glass tanks lined the walls, each holding something that twitched, breathed, or watched. Voss had learned long ago that flesh was simply another form of machinery, one that could be reassembled with enough patience and cruelty. He called them subjects, though they once had names. He erased those first. One creature dragged itself toward the glass, its spine bent backwards at an impossible angle, lungs wheezing through a slit in its throat. Another had too many eyes, blinking, each one capable of seeing a different spectrum of fear. They were alive because Voss demanded it. They suffered because he needed proof. But creation was never his true obsession. Above the lab, the city rotted. Crime thrived in alleyways. Politicians lied behind polished smiles, and armies marched under banners of false virtue. Voss watched it all through hacked feeds, disgust curdling his genius. Humanity, he believed, required correction. That was where the creatures came in. He released them at night. One by one, they were smuggled into the world through sewer tunnels and forgotten access shafts. Programmed with pain-triggered obedience, they followed his commands without question. He sent them into homes of rivals, into crowded subway stations, into war zones where their distorted silhouettes were blamed on enemy weapons or mass hysteria. The creatures did not kill quickly. Voss had designed them to spread terror first, to let victims understand that something was wrong with reality itself before the end arrived. Survivors spoke of shadows that learned, of monsters that whispered their own names, as if begging for forgiveness. Back in the lab, Voss reviewed the footage with clinical satisfaction, until one night the feeds went dark. The lab's lights flickered. The incubators began to open. Voss turned slowly, confusion creeping into his expression as wet footsteps echoed behind him. The creatures stood differently now, straighter, steadier, their eyes fixed on him with something new inside of them. Recognition. "You're malfunctioning," Voss said, backing away. "I can fix you." One of them spoke. Its voice was a chorus of all the others.
"You taught us pain. You taught us purpose."
The door sealed shut, the instruments whirred to life on their own. As the creatures closed in, Dr. Voss finally understood the flaw in his work. He had made them alive, and they had learned what evil was by watching him. The Flower of Eternal Life by the Prowler. The medical community of Charleston, South Carolina is abuzz with rumor and gossip. Even more so are the people who reside on Shady Tree Lane. The subject is one Dr. Elias Bartholomew, a medical surgeon who practices and believes in the teachings of modern medical science. Not long ago, he was considered a pillar and young leader of the medical community of the ever-growing vibrant city of Charleston. someone considered to lead the charge into the ways of modern medicine of the 19th century, leaving the archaic beliefs and teachings in the past. That all changed, however, with the tragic demise of his young pregnant wife, Victoria, who lost her life and their soon-to-be child's in an unfortunate carriage accident along the Ashley River. After the tragedy, he became a recluse, and he disappeared from the community he was once so well regarded in. After some time, rumblings of curiosity began to surface around the neighborhood of Shady Tree Lane, the street where the home of Dr. Bartholomew sat. Strange, unexplainable sounds and loud tinkering could be heard through all hours of the day and night. He was never seen, however. He never left his now decaying home, not to anyone's recollection, that is to say. You couldn't even see him through the windows if you tried, for every curtain and every drape had been drawn and fastened since the tragic accident. The only sign of life that came in and out of that house was one single servant, a butler named Gerald, an old English gentleman who had been in the employ of the Bartholomews since they moved to Charleston some 10 years back now. But he never spoke a word to anyone. He just took care of the weekly shopping. The people, of course, tried prying him for information, but he always stayed stern-lipped and went about his business, always remaining loyal to Dr. Bartholomew's affairs. It took another year of rumors and strange sounds and tinkering until Dr. Bartholomew was officially heard from. It was an announcement by the doctor himself, sent to the Medical Journal of Charleston, the leading medical paper of all South Carolina at the time. It was an announcement proclaiming his return, a tease of his experiments and findings of the past year, and the promise of a medical breakthrough, the likes which have never been seen or ever will. Simply put, medical history, claiming the preservation and extending of human life, even the reversal of death. He ended his letter with an invitation to the Charleston Royal Theater, 1 week from tonight, to his peers to witness his scientific breakthrough, an event that you surely cannot miss. Night that will shock history and change how we forever think of life. This is the reason for the medical community's clamoring, why the rumors are swirling and intrigue thick throughout the air. What could this medical breakthrough be? And something that could be so unthinkable as the preservation and extension of life and the reversal of death, and all coming from a man who hasn't been seen or heard from in years? Who, yes, at one time was seen as a credible young surgeon and medical scientist, a leader in modern medicine, but was believed to have changed and gone mad with the loss of his young family. These thoughts and feelings are the sweeping emotions from everyone across the Charleston community. What is to be in store from the now mystery doctor? Long believed to have gone mad, what awaits his fellow peers a week from tonight at the theater? What has he been working on throughout the long days and never-ending nights within the bowels of his home? All questions that will be answered on the evening of Saturday the 18th, year of our Lord 1875, at Charleston's Royal Theater. What the people do not know is that he's been very busy behind the scenes over the past few years since the tragic accident, toiling in secrecy and what some in the higher society would think of as depravity, and what all might consider macabre debauchery. Yes, it is true he slipped into a melancholic state with the loss of his family, walking the hallways of madness and dancing in the cold embrace of lunacy and depression. Accounts of his madness from household staff he drove off with his rage and sadness permeated the echo chambers of Charleston society. Everyone left him but Gerald, who stayed on and became as much of a caretaker to him than a trusted butler. A funeral was held for his beloved Victoria. No one saw a last glimpse of her, however, for the casket was closed, and because she was not there. Unbeknownst to the mourners, Dr. Bartholomew had the corpse of his beloved, which still contained their unborn child, inside a glass coffin filled with ice and other preservatives, locked within a sealed chamber within the basement of his home. Gerald maintained the preservation of his master's bride as the good doctor collected his sanity and set out on an adventure to the jungles of the Amazon, searching for the fabled Vita Eterna flower, the flower of eternal life. He had heard rumors throughout his medical career from doctors returning from South America of the flower's miracle wonders, of its powers of bringing the dead back to life, of curing the terminally ill, to elongating the lives of those who were dancing with death. He read every book, anything written about the flower of eternal life, no matter how official or unofficial, known fact or far-fetched rumor. He learned it, remembered it. The details became second nature to him, ingrained in his psyche. He knew the location, every route and second, and every third route to get there. This is a main reason for the disappearance of Dr. Bartholomew. He was on the hunt. He was on a frantic search for life. He returned, secretly back to his home in Charleston after being away for almost a year, returning with a journal filled with knowledge from tribal medicine men and medical missionaries from the modern civilized towns and villages around the area where the flower grew. Anyone who had knowledge or a thought on the flower, he took note of it, along with 50 flowers themselves. Once home, he secluded himself away inside his laboratory, hard at work trying to create a serum using and harnessing the properties of the mysterious flower. The doctor, however, needed subjects to experiment to see if his serum would work, to see if he could bring the dead back to life. So in the darkness of night, the good doctor and his loyal butler, Gerald, would stalk the Charleston night, looking for volunteers, if you will. Night after night they went out, taking the unsuspected and most vulnerable, killing each one and trying to bring them back to life. There was a lot of failure at first, but the doctor continued the good fight, toiling night after night in his laboratory, trying to perfect his serum of life, while Gerald continued to do his best of disposing of the bodies. People started noticing the disappearances, however. The bodies were piling up. They tried their best to kill their volunteers by different methods to make the authorities believe they hadn't a serial killer on their hands. Gerald did his best to hide the bodies completely, which to his credit worked. But a few had been found, and questions and fear were starting to rise. Finally, after about 5 months and countless bodies, Dr. Bartholomew achieved his life's work on the night he abducted and killed a young streetwalker named Chloe in the alleyways of Tenpenny Lane. With his new concoction that he came up with in his lab, he knew something was different with this batch than the others, even before he injected it into the body. His Bunsen's and beakers rattled and shaked as it held the new mixture. A smile formed across his lips. For the first time in a long time, for he knew he had achieved the impossible. Without hesitation, he filled the syringe with the liquid concoction, then injected it into the lifeless body of Chloe. Within a minute, the corpse began to wiggle and jiggle, convulse and shake. The doctor began to cackle and shouted, "Eureka!" as Chloe's body sat up furiously, expelling a breath of life as it did. He looked upon her as her gray, ashen body returned to life. Inch by inch was returned to a state of living, even regenerating the grievous wound she had succumbed to and the skin around it. If you were to look at her, you could never tell she had been delivered from death's doorstep. You couldn't tell that anything was the matter at all. The doctor gave her a few silver dollars for her inconvenience and swore her to secrecy. Now that he knew it worked, that he had achieved his life's work to bring back his family, he quickly filled another syringe and bounded down the stairs to the basement chamber that held his wife. He entered the room and looked lovingly at her through the glass of the coffin. "Finally, I will be reunited with my lost love," he thought. He opened the coffin and injected the needle into her arm. He waited the minute he knew it took, like it did with Chloe, but there was nothing. No convulsions, no shaking, no signs of life whatsoever. He screamed in pain, not understanding why it worked with Chloe but not his wife. He collected himself and knew he could not quit. Keeping the grip of despair at bay, he realized that Chloe was fresh. She had veins and organs that had just been working, warm blood that still flowed through parts of her body. His wife, on the other hand, had been dormant for years. So he came up with a contraption, a chamber, if you will, and made use of the recent invention of electricity. He needed a way of jolting his wife's body back to life, to get her heart and blood pumping, to send the serum throughout her body. And this was the way. Day and night he hammered and tinkered away. This is what the neighborhood had been hearing and wondering about. Another 4 months it took to complete the chamber. But once it was ready, he eagerly placed his wife's body inside, filled with the serum of life, and pulled the lever. The room flashed and sparkled from the electrical illuminance. He peered through the window of the chamber door and watched as his wife's body convulsed. It seemed to be working, but could not tell for certain until he turned the machine off. He gave it a minute and flipped the switch, rushing into the chamber to see if his calculations were correct. He waited an extra minute to let the serum work and course through her body, and to his delight it did. Her body shook with life, and like with Chloe, he could see the serum work its way through his wife's body, rejuvenating it inch by inch. She then sat up quickly with a thunderous jolt. As she did, the doctor cried and exclaimed with glee as he heard the breath of life escape her lips. They embraced and cried, being together for the first time in years, and as they embraced, they felt a tiny kick through her stomach, for not only had his serum brought his wife back, but also their child's. Dr. Bartholomew waited another 2 months to send his letter, teasing his achievements and announcing the date for his findings at the Royal Theater. The night was finally upon us, and the doctor's peers and other prominent members of Charleston society flocked to the theater, eagerly awaiting what the mysterious doctor had been working on. After a short speech about his work and his findings in the journal he embarked on to undo Death's plan, he proclaimed to the crowd that he had found a way to reverse death, to bring the dead back to the living. The crowd howled with laughter as those words left his lips. He stood there for a moment, basking in their mockery. He then moved toward the curtain behind him on stage, giving a hard tug on the rope to draw back the curtains, revealing his wife holding their newborn child, revealing the family everyone knew had been dead these past 2 years. The crowd sat in silence, shocked and disbelief, gazing upon the happy family, realizing that death was no more. The crowd began to cheer. Looking upon him, someone in the crowd said, "Look upon the doctor. who forever changed life.
I feel myself waking up as I sit here. The train is slowly rolling into the station. I look outside the window and see all the nasty people scattering around. Walking fast or running to their destinations, they look like filthy rats. They are just disgusting. As the train stops, I get up and gather my bags and straighten my hat. I say to myself, well, here's to new beginnings. As I exit the train, I see a sign a man is holding up. It has the key word that I told him to put on the sign. It must be my new hired assistant. I know he's excited about our work that we are going to do. He seems to be a little strange, but I really like that about him. You can't trust a so-called normal person. I walk up to him. Such a little man, he's probably 5'6". I tell him I'm the one on the card and he greets me with a happy smile. I smile back. He grabs my bags and we leave the train station. He loads my bags into the car and we get in. He starts the car and we begin driving. I told him I want to see the city right now. I want to hang out somewhere. A place where I can get a feel of the nasty people here, the locals of the city. My assistant mentioned that a small coffee shop is the place to be. All the big names of the city hang out there. It's called the Coffee Cafe. I said to him, all right, let's go there. It sounds lovely. We talked a little during the drive. I was telling him more of my expectations of him, the rules I have. I also talked about the secrecy of the experiments we will be conducting, the work we will be doing to improve the city and to teach the city of its sins. We reached the coffee cafe. What a dump. As we enter, the place is very busy. It smells awful to me. I can't wonder why these people here can handle the disgustingness of this place. I chose and sat at the table in the middle of the room. This way I can look all around me, observe the foulness. My assistant sits next to me as well. He tapped my elbow and said, "See that man over there?" As he nodded to my right. I looked and said, "Yeah, what about him?" My assistant said, "That's a big-time detective. Really, a man to watch out for. He's pretty smart." I said to him, "Really? That's fantastic to know," as I smiled. So I sit and stare at the detective. The door opens and another big man comes in and walks up to the detective. He smells of cigars. As they talk, the detective looks my way, but I keep my stare straight at him. As the detective stops looking my way, I noticed my assistant looks a little nervous. I told him to straighten up. There's nothing to do, nothing to worry about. After a while, I decided to leave. My assistant drove me to my new home. It's a lower-level apartment with a big room. It's crappy. Foul neighborhood. A good place to not be noticed for a while. We exit the car, he grabs the bags, and we walk down the stairs from the sidewalk and enter the apartment. I look around. This will do, I thought. I took a deep breath and said out loud, "Ah, this is where it begins." I researched this vile city. I know this city loves its urban legends and folklore, so I will give them the real thing it loves so much, plus a few surprises as well. I've been having my assistant scouting some prospective subjects, so to speak, and some more supplies I need. He is to only pick up the homeless or runaways, subjects that have no reason to have anyone looking for them. This will be an intense little visit I have planned. I need everything to work out just as I designed. I continue to set up my lab. A couple days go by. I start on my first experiment. As I look down at the table in the dim yellow light, this being, this trash, will be something that this city wants. My assistant picked the perfect subject for the first one. I grab my syringe that says number 1 and insert it into the unconscious being. It starts to shake a little, moans in its unconscious state. Then it sighs and stops. I smile and say, "My baby, my number 1. A tear of joy runs down my cheek. I said to my assistant that he needs to remove the subject and hide the body somewhere, preferably in the sewer system or some dark tunnel area. It needs to grow and develop. It needs to feed on what lives there. It needs that type of environment. It will need a few weeks before it can fully take over its body." He said okay and had his brother come over to help him. As days and weeks go by, I had many subjects injected with different formulas. It's been a fantastic time so far. I feel so alive. I look up and scream, "This will be a new world. My creations. My perfect creations." As I've been feeling like having a little celebration, I decided to go to a local bar. I step out of the apartment and take a walk. I come across a small place called Rocco's Bar. I stop and head into the establishment. I've been feeling great, alive. I'm even enjoying the atmosphere here. I look around, I notice a vampire. I don't think anyone here notices that she is one, but I do. She's very beautiful, sexy, dangerous. I like that. But I know to stay away from those creatures. They are unpredictable. I'm sure some lonely, unlucky bastard will join her tonight. I look up. Hey, there he is. The man of the hour. Our favorite detective. The one working that lovely murder case that I read in the papers. How adorable of a situation that is. Especially since the fantastic werewolves. Tasty stuff. Oh, he notices me. How brilliant. I smile at him as he starts to walk toward me. I wonder what he'll say. Damn it. That stupid detective's partner interrupts and they leave together. Oh, how charming. The detective did glance back at me before he left. I feel so grateful that I have most likely intrigued his interests. That gets me a little aroused. This was the perfect evening. Well, I've been a very busy man of late. My experiments are almost done. I'm up to number 22 now. How these months have flown by. Such fun, too. My assistant brings in another subject, but he warns me that it's not a homeless person or runaway this time. He told me it couldn't be avoided. He said that the man saw him dumping the body tonight and he had to knock him out to take care of him, so he decided to bring him here. He mentioned to me that he knows he wasn't to get someone that would be noticed missing and that people will be looking for him, but again, it was unavoidable. I said, that doesn't matter anymore. I'm just about done here anyway. As I worked on him and injected him with number 23, my assistant went to dispose of the body as instructed many times before, but I stopped him before he left. I told him to come back after he was done so we can start cleaning up. He agreed and left with his brother and the body of experiment number 23. Later that evening, my assistant came back as instructed. I told him that I will be leaving tomorrow and wanted to thank him for all of the work he has done for me. He smiled and said it's been a real pleasure. He told me he enjoyed working on this important work. He said that I feel like I'm another brother to him. I opened my arms to suggest a hug, and the dumb bastard fell for it. I wrapped my arms around him, kissed the top of his head. I slammed the syringe down into his neck and injected him with number 24. He screamed out in pain, and I just laughed. He fell to the floor, as that also included a knockout serum, just like all the others. He'll sleep for a couple days. I finished picking up all of my belongings and packed them up. I looked around at my lab and smiled. This was a great location, I thought to myself. I stepped over my assistant's body and left the apartment to go get something to eat and to celebrate. I went out and had a very late dinner, a bloody steak and potatoes with a glass of wine. I looked around the restaurant. I smiled at everyone and giggled a little to myself. I thought of all the fun this city will have with my experiments. They definitely will have a tremendous time. The next day, I headed back to the train station. It's been a fun few months here, I thought to myself. I looked up and noticed my favorite detective was standing right over there. He must be waiting for someone. I walked quickly and I purposefully bumped into him. He shouted out at me. I climbed up the steps to enter the train. I look at him, tip my hat with a smile. As I walk the train to find my seat, I load my bags and sit down. I looked out the window and saw the detective greeting another man. He must be another officer or something. Well, after they deal with that beautiful, crazy murderer and the werewolf mob war, they will certainly have their hands full. This city does not know what they'll be in for. As I say that to myself, I laugh out loud. Well, on to the next city. I feel the tug of the train starting. I pull my hat over my eyes and lay back with a smile and start to fall asleep.